back to another episode of the Tales of Agmar podcast. I'm your host and creator, Sinjin, here to bring you more of this amazing blend of sci-fi and fantasy. And real quick, let's get some of those announcements out of the way. First, Happy New Year's to everyone who celebrated this past week. I hope you and yours has a good start to this next year. And we're working on this thing. Next, I'm here to remind everyone of the Discord and Ko-fi that are up for Tales of Agmar. There's been some slight under-the-hood adjustments on the Discord just so that I can stay more connected to you guys, and hopefully soon the Ko-fi will get some more art posted on it, and so definitely check that out. Once the art ends up on the Ko-fi, I'll also announce it on the Discord, and then the eventual episode that will come out before or after I make that post on the Ko-fi. Also, the book is actually going pretty well. Just ran through all my notes, ran through everything. We are getting really close to having this big draft done. I would say probably about 90% of the way through. And then after that, we're going to have a short but intensive editing cycle. And then I will find some reasonable way to push out a couple sample chapters for all of you guys to read. Now, on this week's episode, so what we're going to worry about in the next little bit, as you might notice, this episode is looking kind of big compared to some of my other episodes. And that's going to be because it's the compilation episode like we talked about. Did some additional editing just to help stuff work out, but I hope you guys will love it. We're going to just have all of Kandra's story in one place for you guys to go and listen. So without further ado, let's finish this origin story one more time. Kandra stood at the castle gates beside her mother, Queen Vel of House Dralwryn. Together, they waited for the return of the king, her father, who had gone to war against the theocracy in the distant colonies. He'd been gone for 6 months, fighting to drive back the invaders and protect their people over there. Every day since he left with his men, Gander had waited here, at this spot, watching the road beyond the gates. She searched for the bannered messenger who would one day bring news of his return. And this morning, way before the sun had fully risen, her mother had shaken her awake, breathless with urgency. The rider had been spotted. Now they stood together in the frigid breeze as the messenger passed through all 7 gates of the central keep. His horse followed the path as it sharply cut left, and after a few yards right, and then left again. He carried on for a few more yards, and then turned right again. As he continued along this path, his horse zigged and zagged, slowing down. He was taking longer than usual. Kandra shivered as her mother wrapped a soft woolen blanket around them both, trying to hold on to whatever warmth the dragons had blessed them with that morning. As the rider cleared the final gate, he looked up. His face was worn. Scars crossed his skin, etched there by years of service to the royal family. Kandra searched his eyes, looking for the familiar light that usually lived behind them. She did not find it this morning. Instead, she saw an inky dimness and a tear. "Capra," she called, her voice bright and hopeful. "When will Father be joining us?" Capra's gaze shifted, away from her, to her mother, and then down to the ground. He stayed that way as his horse closed the remaining distance, plodding along. Then, quietly, almost as if the words themselves weighed too much, he spoke. "The king won't be back." Kendra's smile vanished. Hot tears welled in her eyes and spilled down her cheeks. "Mom," she said, her voice breaking. "I thought Dad said he was going to come back." Vel did not answer. Her hands flew to her mouth, stifling any sound that might comfort her child. Her knees buckled, and she collapsed to the cold stone ground. Tears blurred her vision, leaving her unable to see Gander at all. Several long moments passed before she found her voice. "Come here, little one." Kandra stepped forward slowly, unsure of what she was supposed to feel. Before her father had left, she had just turned 12. Her birthday had come only days before the news arrived that the colonies were even under attack. There had been a great celebration. Friends, family, food, everything she had wished for. Her father had promised they would celebrate just the same when he returned. He had sealed it with one of those funny promises he did with his small finger at the end of his hand before mounting his horse and leading his officers through the gates. Now, all the warmth she felt came from the tears still trailing down her face. "Maybe Dad just got lost," she said softly. "I'll go find him." Kendra started walking off, but the Queen grabbed her daughter's hand and pulled her close. "No, love," Velv said. "Dad isn't going to be able to come back. Not this time." "Why?" Kendra asked, her eyes searching her mother's face. Velv swallowed. Hard. "Because your father is dead." A pit opened in Kendra's stomach. Dead? Why did he have to die? He'd made a promise. Dad always kept his promises. Every time he left, he came home. Not this time, though. Kendra sank down beside her mother, uncaring for the cold stones or the fine fabric of her dress. After several minutes of shared tears, Velv gathered herself and her daughter, and together they went back to the castle. They slowly made their way up the stairs, around a corner, and up some more stairs as they made it to Kandra's room. Then she set her daughter gently on the bed. "Stay here, dear," she said. "Mommy has to go away for a few hours." "What?" Kandra protested. "Please. No, stay." She reached for her mother's hand, but Velv pulled away. "No, child. I must attend to the kingdom now that your father's gone." The words reopened the wound in Kandra's heart. Velv clapped her hands twice, and 2 servants appeared from a hidden doorway. "You two," the queen said. "Help my daughter. She's had a difficult day. See that she eats something." And without another word, she left, closing the door behind her and placing a guard outside. "Well, princess?" one maid asked gently. "What would you like to eat today?" It took Kandra a minute to respond, the lump in her throat slowly going back down. Then when she could, "I want to be left alone," she replied, her voice sharper than usual. "It's not a good time." "As you wish, my lady," the other maid said. They both bowed and departed. Kandra lay back down on her bed, staring at the ceiling. She still hadn't seen her father. It must be a game, she told herself. Her father loved games. Hide and seek through the halls of the castle, laughing when she finally found him. It was silly, childish even, but comforting. He'd been gone such a long time. Maybe he had just forgotten how old she was. Yes, that had to be it. If she found him, everything would return to normal. No more maids hovering, no whispers, no crying mother every night, just promises kept. She slipped from her bed and crossed the room to the servants' entrance, hidden behind a stone pillar. The narrow door always creaked, but after many years, Kendra had figured out a way to open it that caused the hinges to be silent. She eased it open and descended down the steep stairs, being careful not to trip down them like she had a few days prior. She did this in an effort to not alert the servants, as she wasn't exactly supposed to be back here. She wasn't even supposed to know it existed, but she did. As she looked out the windows in the cramped staircase, the sun was high overhead. It was nearly midday now. She guessed that since the time she had sent the maids off and decided to then go down the stairs, they should be far enough down that she could slowly make her way down in an effort to prevent anyone from coming back up the stairwell, or from seeing her in the stairwell. She was right. At the central servant corridor Voices drifted towards her. She nestled herself deep into the shadows, pulling her green dress close so it wouldn't give her away. Out through the narrow slice of a window she had through the door, she saw 2 servants pass as they went up to go tend to her parents' room. Then she slipped into the common area and hid behind a chair. "Did you hear?" one maid whispered. "The king is dead." "Dead?" another breathed. "I heard the queen finally got her wish." "Quiet," the first one hissed. "Don't say that out loud. We don't need to be spreading rumors." I know. It just seems to be that the queen's different the past couple of days. The voices faded. Kandra remained frozen. Questions crashed into her all at once. Why would her mother want her father dead? And was she wrong about this being a game? What did the maid mean when Mom was different the past couple days? Sure, she had missed Dad, but Kandra hadn't noticed anything. She seemed the same. Thoughts left as quickly as they had formed, though. She then continued to move away from her hiding spot behind the chair, taking care to not make any extra noise, just like her father had taught her to during their games of hide and seek. She crept through the door, making her way out into the foyer of the castle. Then she waited for a routine guard switch. Queen Velv, soon to be announced as the sole ruler of the Middle Kingdom, stood in her husband's study, the place where he kept all his secrets, all his books, all his knowledge about the kingdom, about the dragons, about his order of the blades. She found his way to his familiar chair. Then she just sat in it, taking it all in. He was gone. Actually gone. She didn't know how it happened. She didn't know if she wanted to know how it happened. She could barely believe it as it was. But the man was dead. The strongest gear blade in all of the kingdom, dead. Velv knew that Capra, one of her husband's most loyal friends, would never lie about his whereabouts, so she could trust this report from him. Of course, that left her with another problem: running the kingdom. Tenalis H. Dralwryn, her now late husband, had taken care of the kingdom all by himself since his father's death 20 years ago, keeping the nobles in line, ensuring the peasantry did what they were told, fighting off the attacks from the theocracy. He had all done that, all by himself. She had waited, smiled, waved, enjoyed luxurious meals, and loosely tended to their daughter. Now, it was her responsibility, all by herself, and one she would not take lightly. She would make every step towards achieving his dream of peace for the colonists, ensuring that they had freedom from the theocracy, from their mechanized oppression, and prosperity for the kingdom as a whole. At least, that was the plan on paper. Velv went around the room, cleaning and dusting in small sections. She hadn't been here the whole time during her husband's absence, for fear of the memories it could spark. As she continued to clean, she made mental notes of what needed to stay, what needed to go, where to move things, what things needed to be burned. It would take a few months to get it all sorted out, finished, and cleansed. But after that, it would feel more like a home again, a fresh start. That alone, however, took her most of the morning and afternoon. By the time she decided she was finished for the day, it was almost the evening meal. At this point, she felt she was in the right headspace that she could talk to Kandra again. The girl was only 12, but had the aspirations of somebody older and the imaginations of a younger girl. She didn't need her daughter getting any ideas or escaping from the castle again. Vel went looking for her daughter in her room. The door hadn't been opened at all. The guard outside informed her of that. So she casually swung the door open. "Kandra, Mom's back. Would you like to have dinner with me?" No response. She looked around the room. Perhaps she was just playing hide and seek again. She looked around, under the bed, behind the dresser, all the usual places. She even looked down the servants' stairwell, which she was sure her daughter didn't know about, but just in case she checked there. Again, nothing. Kandra was gone.
Velv stood in her daughter's room, panic spreading like wildfire across her face, eventually her whole body. "Guard," she called. The man came rushing into the room. "What is it, my liege? Are you sure my daughter didn't leave this room?" He looked around, bewilderment on his face. "I'm positive she never left, ma'am. I never saw her." "Evidently not positive enough," she said through gritted teeth. "Alert the other guards. She needs to be found immediately." The man quickly scuttled away while the queen stood there in her child's room, trying to figure out how she could have gotten out, pacing back and forth, looking under the covers, under the bed, out the still closed window. Her daughter had always been the adventurous type. That was something she'd gotten from her father. But now that he was out of the way, perhaps the princess could be carved into something more royal-like. Kandra was slowly making her way through the castle grounds. A few minutes ago, the guards had started to move around in larger and more deliberate groups, like they were searching for something or someone. She didn't really care, though. If they were looking for father, she would find him first. Though it had been a few months since she'd played hide and seek, Kandra could still see his smile stretched wide along both sides of his face, beaming with admiration for her. She couldn't wait to see it again. However, in her distracted state, Kandra missed the gloved hand reaching down for her shoulder. As soon as it latched on, she jumped. "Don't worry, princess," the guard said. "The queen has been looking for you all day." The man's voice sounded gentle and sweet, but a little forced. And the queen looking for her, that confused Kandra a bit. Her mother looking for her? She hadn't thought her mother had wanted to look for her. That was usually father's job. It was always father that found her, never mother. The guard continued. "Come now, Kandra. Let us go back and talk with the queen." Kandra tried to pull away, but the man had a tight grip on her arm. He began dragging her behind him, her shorter legs barely able to keep up with his pace. "Let go of me," Kandra yelled as the man continued to drag her into the castle. "I want to go find my father." The man stopped and locked eyes with her, a triangle framing a tattoo under his eye. "Your father is dead, young miss. It's time you accept that." His tone sounded similar to that made earlier, the one who had said her mother was finally getting her wish. And something with the way he said that her father was dead clicked an emotion in Kandra's mind she didn't want to feel. She began to follow the man without more complaint. In a few minutes, they were both inside the castle, walking up the flight of stairs to her room. She could hear her mother arguing with another guard. "Your time as a castle guard is over," her mother said. "But my queen, my family has served you for generations." "Not anymore. You let my daughter escape." "How was I supposed to know she had access to another exit from her room? You're a guard. You should have been guarding her." Kandra and the guard who was dragging her cleared the stairs and looked at her mother, causing the queen to change personalities on the spot. "Kandra," she exclaimed while running towards her child. "It's so good to see you safe." She looked up at the guard that brought Kandra to her. "Thank you so much. My family is in your debt." You are a perimeter guard, yes? She had noticed the insignia on his chest plate. Kandra noticed that her mother seemed especially intrigued by the triangle under the man's eye, however. Why, yes, my queen, I am. His response sounded almost rehearsed. Well, I shall promote you to keep guard then. We've recently had a vacancy. The other guy tried to raise an objection, but was silenced. Much obliged, my queen. Of course. Now, you, she pointed to the guard she just promoted. Why don't you take this fine young man I've been talking to the edge of town? He's going off to fight the theocracy. But my liege, the condemned guard said, I am of House Blackthorn. You cannot just brush me away. I am a fellow noble. The other guard grabbed him. You heard the queen, lad. It's time for you to move on. He walked off with the other guard, pushing and pulling him down the stairs as he tried to get back the good graces of the queen. Velv guarded the scene from her daughter. Once the two men were farther down the flight of stairs, she bent down and gave her an embrace. It felt hollow, empty. It was lacking the warmth of her father. Kandra, she cooed, trying to fill that void. I was so worried about you. Come here. The embrace still chilled her. Mommy? Kandra asked. What's going to happen to that guardsman? Oh? She looked behind her daughter's back, and then behind her own. He's going to save the colonies, dear. That's not what it sounded like, contested Kandra. Don't worry about him. Soon enough, he'll be of no concern for us. Kandra didn't always like when her mother used that line. The queen grabbed Kandra and lifted her off the ground, gently tugging her in one direction. Kandra knew better than to fire her mother when she was like this. Once she had her mind set on something, that was how it went. Her and her father had always done their best to play around it. Now let's go freshen you up. You've had quite the long day, her mother said. She reluctantly followed Velv back into her room, where a hot wash bowl was waiting. The queen cleaned her up and applied more of the white face powder to her. It's something that Kandra despised, but it seemed to calm her mother down whenever she wore it, so she allowed it to happen. Then Velv moved on to brushing her hair. This was another thing Kandra had never really liked. She didn't like the long hair. She didn't like the ponytails. She definitely didn't enjoy a brush through her hair. She always wanted it shorter. But she allowed her mother to do it because, again, it calmed her down. And her mother always made this thing about being a lady and how that was important. And so Kandra did her best to just listen to her and never go against these things. She had learned that the hard way. Once the hair was done, Kandra was ready to move away when her mother said, "Come into my room with me, my daughter. I have a gift for you." Kandra had never before received a gift from her mother. It had always been her father who had given them, whether it was a birthday, a holiday, or him coming back from a meeting or expedition. Mother had never brought back anything like that. But since she wouldn't be receiving one from father today, she figured she could accept one from her. She followed her mother down the hallway to what was once her and her father's room, but Kandra guessed it was now just her mother's room. The one that now would be a little less inviting. As she walked inside, Kandra thought about how vibrant it had looked when her father was around, how they would have sleepovers together, the way the moonlight glanced off the pool in their private garden. What she walked in on was the opposite. While the sun was setting outside the room, it was filled with darkness, the kind that sucked in all the light around it, holding it tight and never letting it shine again. Gander realized that's how she was feeling. She was the light. As her mother continued to lead her deeper into the room, she found it harder and harder to breathe. "Mother," Kandra said, "it's kind of stuffy in your room." "Oh?" Her mother didn't seem to notice, or care for that matter. Then she saw it. A triangle, just like the guard. It shone through a smudged part on her mother's powdered face. "What's that?" Kandra pointed at the triangle under her mother's eye. Her mother quickly covered it up. "Nothing, dear. Just a little splotch I need to fix with more powder." "I saw the same thing on one of the guards' faces, though," she continued. "What does it mean?" "Like I said, dear, nothing. It means nothing." Kandra's mother was starting to show her irritation again. "Really?" Kandra pressed. "Because you were looking at it an awful lot when you were talking with him." Kandra's mother's face went from distorted to panicked, then back to a chilling calm. "You saw too much, dear. Again. Just like your father." Her tone froze Kandra in place. Kandra's mind started racing. What did Mother mean by again? What had she seen that before? Why couldn't she remember? What was wrong with her? Why did Dad have to leave? Did he have one of those marks too? Did she?
Vel's face was puckered with anger. "Come here, child. Now." Kandra ran over to her mother, scared of what her new tone of voice was for. She had never heard it until now, unless a faint memory began to tug at the corners of her mind. This had all happened before. It all had happened before, from this morning to right now. Kandra was starting to get a sense of déjà vu. A flood of memories kicked into her mind. This wasn't the first, second, or even the third time that today had happened. Had she just forgotten how many times Capra had come up through the gates to tell her that father had been killed? She started to hyperventilate, her chest rising faster and faster. The air inside her mother's room wasn't helping. It was clouding her, covering up who she was, erasing and bringing back the memories as it went. Kandra tried to pull away, but just as she did so, her mother latched onto her arm, pulling her in close. "Sorry, little one, but you can't be allowed to remember what you saw today. Or any of today, actually. We have to start again." Her mother's voice was dripping with malice intent, just as it had before. Just as it had all 664 times prior. This would start the cycle again. Velv continued talking. "This will be try number..." Her voice dozed off as if she thought about it. 665 now, right, dear?" Kandra nodded, even though she didn't want to. Her body was fully bent to her mother's will. The air was crowding out her lungs now, making it impossible to breathe. It took some time, but Kandra slowly turned to look at her mother, pleading with her eyes to be let go of. All she got in response was a laugh. "Now, my dear, it'll be okay. You won't remember a thing. When you wake up in the morning, this will all have never happened, and we can try again." The Queen's head ticked a little, showing off her nervous tendency. "Hopefully this time, everyone can play their parts right. We will, of course, have to get a new guard for your room, and I will need to make sure to powder up extremely well in the morning. Perhaps I'll post a guard at the servants' area, though. But then you might catch on." She let go, and Kandra rushed to the door. "Don't you dare." On her way towards the exit, she pulled something off a nearby table and threw it at her mother, slowing her down. "Kandra, this is no way for a lady to act. Come back, now." But she wouldn't. Every fiber of Kandra's body told her to run as fast as she could and get there. She remembered a place where Dad was. She'd been unable to make it there all the other times. Or maybe she couldn't remember. But this time, she had to make it there. Bolting out of the room, she turned hard into the hallway, eventually getting to the end, and started a speedy descent down the stairs. Now that she had left the room, Kandra noticed that the air was lighter, breathable, filling up her lungs with what they needed to keep her going. After clearing the stairs, she heard her mother yell from up top, "Kandra! Guards! My daughter's running away. Stop her! She heard the tapping of studded leather as she continued her push for the courtyard and the first gate. As it gradually got louder, she tried to desperately pick up speed. Then a memory came back. A memory of what father had taught her. What was now so long ago. Void step. Kandra focused on the black bracelet her father had given her, remembering what it had been like the first time her father had held her in his arms. The warmth and care, she felt it. The stoic nature of his face, she saw it. She wanted to be back there so bad. Then she pulled in one last breath before willing herself into the void. The world became a shadowed black as she continued running. Parts of the castle whirled by her as she crossed through the first gate, then the second, third, fourth, all the way past and through the seventh one. She was free. Kandra broke out of the void and continued lightly jogging on foot. Her time in the void having regenerated her stamina by a considerable amount. It would have taken some time for her to escape, to reach the edges of the castle town, but she knew she could make it. She felt it. She felt that she knew exactly where the grove was that father stood in, and as she continued, the world around her started to blur. Wherever it was, she let them pool there for a while before blinking her eyes, letting them fall and splatter on the ground. Her and her father had always thought Mother was interesting. Father told her once that one of his happiest and saddest moments in life had been this arranged marriage set by his parents. He had waited too long to choose a wife for himself, apparently, and they had decided for him. At first, he told Kandra that the two had been deeply in love, and then when Kandra came, it was even more beautiful. But one day, after her mother had returned from a trip that she had taken to her family's estate on the opposite end of the continent, there had been something different about her. The air around her was hard. Something both her and her father had sensed. After that, she was never the same again, constantly worried, thinking, and meeting with people in the library. Whenever she met with someone, Kandra was not allowed to come in. And now she was starting to figure out why. It had something to do with the triangle people. Whatever that symbol was that Mom had under her eye was what was causing this pain, this suffering to come upon their family. She was sure of it now. Kandra continued running down the central road of the town. It was starting to get dark now. Other families were gathered inside their homes, caring for one another, checking to make sure each other were safe, but not hers. Hers was checking to make sure she didn't tell. "The princess is missing," she heard a crier behind her say. "Help find the princess. Reward promised for her safe return." The lights of the town began to flicker on, growing brighter at the news. Doors opened as people began to look for her. Someone caught sight of her dress. "She's over here," they yelled. "Princess, come back. I'll take you back home." She continued running away. Then a gear blade pulled up beside her. "Princess," the woman tried to keep a calm voice as they sprinted along the city towns, her studded leather lightly clacking. "Why don't we go back to the castle? Say hi to Mommy." Kandra picked up the pace. It was getting hard to keep this speed, but deep inside, she knew she needed to keep pressing forward. Going back. "Why, the lady tried to grab her, but Kandra disappeared into the void again, perfectly dodging her and causing the would-be captor to stumble onto the cobbled road. After a few extra feet, she stepped out of the void again, remembering her father's warnings about using her powers too much. No one needed to know that she could use them either, just in case she needed them again. She brushed by a few more of the stone and straw houses. She'd been running for so long that Kandra hadn't noticed she was already by the edge of town. After she continued through the gate, the woman caught up with her again, the moonlight gleaming off her and revealing a triangle under her eye. The sight took her by surprise, causing her toe to stub on a jutted out piece of stone. Luckily, she caught herself and continued running. "Watch out, princess. The ground gets more unstable from here." The wind tried to grab her again, but Kandra dropped into the void once more, staying there a little longer this time so she could make it through the city gate before it closed. As she passed through the narrow gap and reappeared on the other side, Kandra heard a harsh thud, followed by the woman yelling, "Open this up, you fools! The princess is on the other side!" She pumped her little fist over the small victory she was having, the adrenaline coursing through her veins as she continued to run towards the grove that was in her mind. It was perfectly plotted out, only a few hundred more feet away, meaning that soon she could meet with Father. Kandra ran for just a few more minutes, but it seemed to last hours. As she got closer, she let her pace slow down so she could turn the corner and enter the grove. In the center stood her father, a dark, soft, stoic figure, as if he was waiting for her. Their eyes locked. "Dad!" she yelled. "Kandra." His voice boomed back. "Come here and give me a hug." He bent down on one knee and held his arms open for her. Her speed picked back up upon seeing him, taking her directly into his loving arms. "I missed you," she said. There was a small tear in her father's eye. "I did too, little one." His voice was soft and inviting, the complete opposite of her mother's. "What did you find out this time?" That helped her remember why she had to live this whole thing so many times. She was helping out Father, giving him the information they would need to save the kingdom from them, the Triangle people. "Oh," came a familiar voice. "I didn't know you were still alive, my liege." Kandra turned around to see the woman from before, giving a mocking bow to her father. "To think we've been playing this game for almost 2 years, and you were alive this entire time." "Ah, you know me, Lady Noir. I can't stay dead for long." "Let me change that. Be my guest." "Kandra," her father stood up. "Stay behind me." Both blade wielders readied their weapons. Noir took a more aggressive stance, while her father stayed defensive, mainly concerned with protecting her. Then, without warning, he flashed away, and the woman fell to the ground. But as quickly as he had left, he returned in front of Kandra, covering up the woman. "I'm sorry," her father began, "but you have to go back one more time." "What? Why? We know now that Lady Noir is one of the Triangle people." "Yes, and that now makes it so you have helped me all you can. So why can't I leave with you? Your mother doesn't know that I am still alive. It needs to stay that way." But her father held a finger up to her lips. "No buts. However, I will come back for you. Once it is time to take back the throne, I will return, my little butterfly." Kandra and her father slowly walked back to the city's gate. She grasped tightly to his hand, never wanting to let go. Sadly, in what seemed no time at all, they were back. "Who goes there?" a guard yelled out. "Just an old man and the princess," her father said as he pulled a deep hood over his face. "She is ready to return to the queen." "Oh, fantastic. Come with me, sir, and you can collect the bounty." "I'm quite all right." "Why don't you? I need to be headed home anyways." He let go of Kandra, who reluctantly walked towards the now opening city gates. In a few moments, the guards came out to escort her back to her dreadful mother. As she wandered through them with the guards, she gave one last look towards her father, who smiled and waved before turning around and entering the forest. In what seemed like a long and uneventful time, they eventually made their way back to her mother, who was fuming in the castle courtyard. "Oh, my baby, you're finally back," the queen pretended to care for her as they made their way back to her room, back to the place where light went to die. Once the door was closed and locked, Velv turned back into her normal self. "Tisk, tisk, Kandra," she said. "We can't have you running off again. The royal coffers aren't that large. Tomorrow will be much different." Sure, Kandra was too tired to put much of a fight as her mother pressed the now familiar sharp needle into her arm. "It'll be over soon. Then we can focus on making you a proper lady." The queen clapped her hands twice. 2 maids quickly appeared. "My daughter's feeling a little tired. Take her to her room, please." "Of course, my queen," the older one said. The 2 then picked up Kandra and brought her over to her own bedroom, the memories of her father and the events of the day already leaving her. Once they laid her down to sleep, Kandra quickly closed her eyes and rolled over, falling into the now familiar darkness. At one point, she stirred awake to her mother, coming into her room, chanting some gibberish, but she soon fell back asleep before it was over. Her dreams filled with her father returning from war. "Kandra," her mother called as streams of light began to enter her room. "Hurry! Father is coming home." A rider had been spotted. She quickly got ready to meet the rider at the main gate. Then, Kandra and her mother stood in the frigid breeze as the rider passed through 7 gates to the central keep. His horse followed the path as it sharply cut left, then after a few yards right, and continued doing this along the zigzagged entry to the castle. He was taking longer than usual. Kandra shivered as her mother wrapped a soft woolen blanket around them both, trying to hold on to whatever warmth the dragons had blessed them with. As the rider cleared the final gate, he looked up. His face was worn. Scars crossed his skin, etched there by years of service to the royal family. Kandra searched his eyes, looking for the familiar light that usually lived behind them. She did not find it. Instead, she saw an inky dimness and a tear. "Capra," she called out, her voice bright and hopeful. "When will Father be joining us?" Capra's gaze shifted away from her to her mother and then down to the ground. He stayed that way as his horse closed the remaining distance. Then, quietly, almost as if the words weighed too much, he spoke. "The king won't be coming back." Thanks so much for listening today, everybody. I really hope you guys have enjoyed getting that full, just in-depth telling of Kandra's story, and I hope you guys have loved it as much as I have enjoyed writing and reading it to y'all. Now, as we continue this little series, definitely let me know what your thoughts are on the format, if you think I should go faster while I'm reading or slower. And, since we're finishing up Kandra, let me know what you thought about her. What speaks to her or speaks to you about her as like a reader? Would you like to read more about her? Do you, basically, what are your thoughts on Kandra here? Just let us know. And thanks again for stopping by, and wherever you are, be a good one.